Yeah, welcome back. I'm glad that we can have this opportunity to talk about cyber and university rankings. Um, right, so I just want to share with you how we'll be doing this presentation today, because we have a lot to cover. There's a lot that you can talk about rankings, of course. First of all, we're going to start off with just a general introduction about, university rankings, what Elsevier, what our relationship is with the ranking organizations. And then we're going to talk about each of the different rankings that we cover or that Elsevier provides data for. So that's the Times Higher Education, World University Rankings. We also provide for the impact ranking, and for QS. Sorry, I see there was a little bit of a typo, but it's Times Education, the World University Rankings, the impact rankings, and then also QS, World University Rankings. And we recently introduced also a ranking tracker, which is very exciting. And then in the last part of the session, we're going to talk about some of those factors that influence rankings. And in this section, I'm going to talk about, how can you support institutions in terms of, progressing in the rankings, although that we feel that, the strategy for institutions should not really be in terms of climbing the rankings. It should be more focused on the actual mission and vision of the university, but sometimes those two are linked. And there are some key principles to keep in mind when we are talking about, improving research, and that will also then reflect, of course, in the rankings. We'll have time for Q&A. We've got ample time today, so please, if you have any questions, add them to the chat. I think one is going to, yes, look at the chat, so you can also stop me and ask a question as we go along. I think we've got enough time to do that, right? So the focus mostly is going to be on, how to use the ranking features within cyber. That's going to be the most, so that you're very confident in terms of, where to find what information. But we'll start off with, more overview of what the rankings are specifically, right? So why are international rankings important? And there are, there's a lot of criticism, of course, about rankings, good or bad about the rankings, but in essence, they have become the universal language that shapes decisions around the entire education systems. Before rankings came along, there wasn't really a way internationally for institutions to know where, or, are they compare, how do they compare internationally with other universities, and what are the benchmarks that universities should aspire to. So in that sense, international rankings are very important because they give that universal standard, basically, and they are used by different stakeholders, right? So students use them to choose where to study. Corporations rely on them to identify research partners and talents, right? So many big institutions would want to know which are the best universities in terms of engineering, for example, or any specific area, because that will be their focus then for recruiting. Then governments and policymakers also look at the rankings because, of course, they want to allocate resources. The feedback that they get from the rankings also, informs education policy on the government level. And then, essentially, if you look at everything, it's really about attracting top students also for the universities. If you look at the institution itself, they want to attract top students, they want to attract top researchers, they also want to form global partnerships and increase the visibility overall, because the visibility will also then influence all of those other factors. Important researchers will take note, funders will take note of the university. Really, Whether we like rankings or not, whether we think they're fair or not, they are important and they do influence decisions outside of the university and with inside the university. And why specifically, why we develop within Civil information about the rankings is because the data behind the rankings, especially
ผมไม่แน่ใจว่าค้างไหมครับค้างใช่ไหมครับเดี๋ยวสักครู่นะครับขออนุญาตขออนุญาตเช็คสักครู่นะครับเหมือนเขาน่าจะหลุดครับสักครู่นะครับโอเคเดี๋ยวสักครู่นะครับเดี๋ยวผมขออนุญาตตามเขาสักครู่นะเหมือนเน็ตเขาน่าจะหลุดครับรอสักครู่กันนะครับอย่าเพิ่งหายไปไหนกันนะครับ เดี๋ยวรอสักครู่นะครับแล้วเขากำลังกลับเข้ามานะครับรอสักครู่นะครับ เดี๋ยวสักครู่นะครับเหมือนมีปัญหาทางอินเทอร์เน็ตนิดหน่อยนะครับเดี๋ยวผมกำลังให้เขาแก้นะครับเดี๋ยวเขากำลังจะกลับเข้ามาครับ เดี๋ยวระหว่างรอขออนุญาตให้ทุกท่านลองทำโพลนิดนึงนะครับผมขออนุญาตสำรวจข้อมูลนิดนึงนะครับขอบคุณครับ ขอบคุณครับก็ตอนนี้เหมือนคุณลูเชียจะกลับเข้ามาแล้วนะครับก็โอเคลูเชีย is it okay yeah you can try to share the photo I just put some poll okay yeah okay thanks a lot something แล้วกราบขออภัยนะครับเมื่อกี้เหมือนมีปัญหาทางด้าน connection นิดนึงนะครับโอเค yeah
But can you hear me? Because I
yes
couldn't hear you now for a while.
yes
Okay,
clearly
okay. I'm really sorry about that. Shall I share my screen and continue?
yes please
Okay. Let me just get that on the screen, everything. Right. So really apologies for that. Right, so I think we left off, I'm not sure where I lost you, unfortunately, but I think we were talking about, why are international rankings important and the different stakeholders that need, that look at rankings in terms of decision making about who to fund, recruiting, etc. So if you look at also the challenges for universities in terms of in terms of bibliometric data sets, it's very hard to find, of course, that it's not very transparent in terms of, from the ranking organizations. And then it's also difficult to benchmark with peers on the bibliometric data, especially when you're looking at the subjects and the faculty, or for QS, they call it faculty areas. And then to create management level reports around university rankings are really also very difficult, because institutions try to replicate the information, but of course that was very difficult to do because the methodology is not, so transparent. Or the methodology is transparent, but not the data. So these are the reasons behind why we are making the data available within SciBal. And so what the SciBal analysis really helps you to do is to analyze and understand and generate insights based on the actual bibliometric data sets. And these data sets that are available that we provide to the ranking organizations are for the Times Higher Education World University Rankings, and for QS University Rankings, as well as the THE impact rankings. We also, provide for the US News based national universities, but I'm not going to cover that today because it's very focused, of course, on the US. So also to allow institutions to benchmark on the different, for the different institute, or for the different rankings, to analyze, benchmark, and produce peer comparison reports on these bibliometric drivers, and also to analyze the trends over time, but also across the different metrics, the different subject areas, and remove that need that institutions had to really manually curate and to develop proxy indicators that would give them an idea of how to build a strategy in terms of approaching the ranking. So very practical reasons why we are making the data available within SciBal. But before we continue, we just wanted to ask a few questions. So I wonder if you can run that poll, or did you run the poll already while I was away?
Yes. Do you
Oh,
see
there you
it?
go. I see it, yes. Okay. Uh,
เดี๋ยวช่วยทุกท่านลองตอบคำถามนะครับว่าเราต้องการเรียนรู้อะไรมากที่สุดในวันนี้นะครับเพราะเขาจะได้เน้นให้นะครับก็มีอันแรกเป็น understand นะครับ the methodology ranking ก็คือเข้าใจกระบวนการนะครับวิธีการคิด ranking ครับอย่างที่สองจะเป็นรู้เกี่ยวกับว่าตัว publication metric เนี่ยมันคำนวณยังไงสำหรับ ranking นะครับอย่างที่สามก็จะ navigate สำหรับว่าตัว ranking ใน SciBal อยู่ตรงไหนนะครับอย่างที่สี่ how to help the university improve in ranking ก็คือเราจะพัฒนานะครับ ranking ได้อย่างไรแล้วก็อย่างสุดท้ายก็คืออยากรู้หมดเลยนั่นเองนะครับก็สามารถตอบได้เพราะว่าเดี๋ยวคุณรูเชียจะได้เน้นย้ำให้นั่นเองนะครับ yeah I just run the poll and yeah wait for 30 seconds yeah Yeah, but most of them, as from the answer, right? Like they would like to know everything, it's like all of the above, yeah. But we have like 20% and 20% for understand the methodology of ranking, 20% for how more about know more about how publication metrics are calculated. Yeah, and 8%, each 8% will be how to navigate ranking information in SciBal. I think yeah I will end the poll เดี๋ยวผมขออนุญาตปิดโพลนะครับแล้วเดี๋ยวแชร์ให้ทุกท่านนะครับ so you can see my poll here then you can you see the result.
Okay, right. So I think that we're on the right track, because we're going to cover all of these in this session. So it's really interesting to see what is the biggest interest here. So the methodology is important, how the metrics actually are calculated. I think the navigation is not so difficult, but I'm going to focus on that. Improving, how can you support that? But I think that question is in the last one. All of the above is interesting, really. Thanks so much for giving that feedback.
Yeah.
Very closed. that one, right? So these are just the questions again. So let me move on. So we're going to first focus on tying education. So what I want to do is just go through the methodology, talk about some of the metrics that are being used in the methodology, and then also we'll look at it on, in SciVal itself to see practically where you will find the information, right? So it's important also, before I get to that, to understand that Elsevier, and then specifically, Scopus and SciVal, we do not own the methodology. The ranking organizations own the methodology. We provide them the data, and they do the calculations, and they do the normalizations, etc. So we don't have any control over that, except that, for providing the actual data set behind that. That data set goes to Times Higher Education around May of every year. And that's also important because when I get to the end of the session today, you'll see that it's important to make sure that your affiliation profile is correct. So you need to go to Scopus, for example, make sure that, everything is in order, so that, because the ranking organizations also use the affiliation information. So how do they know that these publications belong to a specific university? They use the Elsevier or the Scopus affiliation information for that, right? But the first thing is, in terms of the methodology of the Times Higher Education ranking, they've got 5 different scores. There's teaching, there's the research environment, there's the research quality score, there's industry score, and there's the international outlook score. And Elsevier's bibliometric data is then used for many of these, different themes that are addressed. And then specifically, it covers about, if you look at these metrics are then dispersed between the different main indicators, and they account in the end for about 40% of the total score. So that's very significant. So research, the influence of research in a university is very important. If you consider like 40% of the score comes just from research. So the 7 indicators that we provide data for is research productivity, which measures the volume of the scholarly output, just how many publications. But I'll go back into each of these, indicators also to show, because each of them have specific exclusions, for example. Then we've got citation impact, which assesses how frequently research is cited globally. There's research strength, research excellence, research influence, which highlights those 3 then highlight the quality and the significance of the institution's research, but also, indicators around patents, reflecting how innovative are the outputs. So in order, in terms of, are they being cited by patents, for example? And then international co-authorship, indicating the global collaborative networks of the institution. So together, these bibliometric measures provide a comprehensive evaluation of a university's research performance and international engagement. So really playing a crucial role in the overall ranking. So you can see this very much citation focused. And this is, in terms of Times Higher Education, they've got this World University Ranking, which is so very academic, very citation orientated. And then it is complemented by the impact ranking, which looks as that lens of societal impact, of course. So these are just highlighting in the entire, across the entire methodology. You can see where the bibliometric indicators lie and how extensive those are. So first of all, just looking at the data set. So the data is coming from Scopus and from SciVal. In Scopus, the raw data, and then from SciVal, some of the metrics, right? So like the field-weighted citation impact, for example. So then the data that is provided, we provide the citation score, the number of papers per faculty, also the number of internationally co-authored papers. We provide the SciVal institutions, So that will be determined, for instance, because each institution has different affiliations. It could be the university, but there could also be research centers or institutes or hospitals linked to that institution. So looking at the entire profile of the institution, and each of the rankings have a different inclusion of whether they include, hospitals or not. And then we also provide some support to the ranking organizations like affiliation corrections. If there are if institutions, for example, split or there are mergers between institutions, we handle that to make sure that the affiliation profiles are then also correct. The data that is used for a specific, it's a 5-year, 5 to 6 year evaluation period. So the publications for the 2025 World University Ranking is between 2019 and 2023, for example. So if we're in 2025, it will always be 2 years back. The reason for that is that publications need time to accrue citations. So it's never, we never look at, or they never take the, the current date there. Only specific publications are included. So it's journal articles, article reviews, or review articles, conference proceedings, books, and book chapters. And in terms of Times Higher Education, the hyper-authored publication. So these days, it's not so uncommon to have like 1,000 authors on a paper. And the Times Higher Education has the method that they handle that is that they fractionalize the citations up to the point that each institution gets at least 0.05 citations per paper, right? Otherwise, because generally in CIBEL, we use whole counting. So we call them kilo papers, where there's more than 1,000 authors, for example. They usually have a large number of citations. It could be like 3,000 citation, which means that if you do whole counting, each institution will get all 3,000 citations. And this is not really a true reflection of the, the impact of the institution. So in terms of these very highly hyper-authored papers, they fractionalize that up to at least 0.05 citations per paper then, or citations per paper, right? Times Higher Education also excludes all discontinued sources, and then it's all, if the journal was discontinued, for example, in 2023, all the publications in that journal will be excluded, right? So that is to prevent that we include papers from journals that have ethical concerns around it. And then there's a whole methodology around how do we handle multidisciplinary? Because you'll see in the ranking subject classifications, there's no multidisciplinary subject categories. So what they do is if the Scopus publications are within multidisciplinary, they remap those publications based on they try to, if it's a multidisciplinary publication or journal, then they try to determine what is the main topic based on the journals that are citing that specific journal. So there's a methodology to handle multidisciplinary as well, right? So these are some of the complexities that are built into the data that we provide to the rankings. For Times Higher Education, the main ranking with the highest weighting is just citation impact, right? So they use the field-weighted citation impact to do that. And the field-weighted citation measures how often a publication is cited compared to the global average of similar publications. So it normalizes the type of publications, the date of publications, and the type of publications as well. So it's a very strong metric that normalizes, but there could also be outliers in that field-weighted citation impact, for example, also, hyper-authored papers, etc. So the average of the citation score and the country, and then that field-weighted citation is then also normalized on a country level. And then combining the two. So it's the raw, or we call it the global field-weighted citation impact for the institution, is then coupled with a citation score that is normalized for the country. So that's the metric with the highest rating within within the Times Education ranking. So this is just a screenshot to show the different ways in which the citation score can be viewed within SCIVAL, but I'm going to focus more on this when we get online. But you can see the global field-weighted citation impact for the institution. You can see the country normalized one. You can see across different times how it's progressed, and then you can also compare that with other institutions, right? But I'll focus on that later. So besides the citation impact, which is field-weighted, there are a number of other citation-based indicators as well. So research productivity accounts for 5.5% of the weighting of the entire score. And here it looks at the institution's ability to get published papers, publishing in quality peer-reviewed journals. This, research productivity metric is also scaled for institutional size. It's also normalized for subject area. So it's very clear that, for arts and humanities, for example, that that publication count will be lower. So there's quite a bit of normalization that is done by Times Education in terms of the 11 subject areas that are covered. Then there's these are actually the citation ones. So research strength counts for 5%. So that is measuring that same field-weighted citation impact, the global field-weighted citation impact, but on the 75th percentile level. And this is to avoid extreme papers that have a detrimental effect, that skew the data, basically. So in every country, every institution, we have those publications that have just like extraordinary high field-weighted citation impact, which is not really a true reflection. It could be a kilo paper, it could be a very controversial paper, but it's not to have something that is more standardized and more, consistent. They also measure that same field-weighted citation impact on the 75th percentile. For research excellence, the rankings look at the number of papers in the top 10% by field-weighted citation impact, so on a global level. So what is the number of publications or the portion of papers of an institution that are amongst the 10% most cited in the world? Also using the field-weighted citation impact there, because it's normalized. And then there's a third metric which also accounts then for 5% of the score, and that looks at the network of citations around papers to understand what impact they have around the world. This is a methodology that cannot be replicated within SCIVAL. It's got a different methodology. It uses the PageRank algorithm. And it basically takes into account the importance of the citing papers, and then also considering the subject area of the research. Right? So it's not just measuring, it's not looking at just the number of citations, but it weights the citations based on where is the citation coming from, and is that publication being cited within the subject area that it is published. So that's very broadly what this metric is about, but it is not a metric that we can replicate within SCIVAL. So we provide the end result of this metric, but not the breakdown of the different steps that are followed. And then other metrics that are also used by Times Education is they look at international outlook. So this accounts for 2.5% of the score. And it takes into consideration the number of publications that are considered international output based on international co-authorship. So it looks at any paper that has at least one international co-author, based on, the country code of the affiliated authors. And then those publications that are then those kilo papers, those, hyper-authored papers, they fractionalize that, as I mentioned before. So the resulting, so in this case also, there is subject normalization that takes place because some subject areas have more, usually have more co-authors and more international co-authors. So for instance, in biomedical science, for example, you have more international co-authoring than you would have in arts and humanities or within mathematics, for example. So that's also normalized. And then finally, also industry, they also look under the industry theme, they look at patent citations. So this is the extent that a university looks at, how does the university support national economies through technology transfer? So it's a proxy measure to say, to what extent is the research output of the institution cited by patents? And this measure is it's also weighted to avoid, penalizing institutions that produce research fields, low in patents. So for instance, if an institution is not so focused on engineering, for example, where you would usually see patent citations, that is then normalized so that those institutions are not penalized, and the patent citations are also normalized for staff numbers, which is, understandable, of course. So once again, this is what it looks like in Cyber, but I'm going to go online and look at this online, and I think I'll do that right away so that we don't confuse the different rankings. So let me see if I can get back into my browser, which was, let's see what was so difficult to get online again.
I see.
Yes.
No worries. Yeah, no worry about it. Yeah.
So let me just see if I can get back in there. I'll use my shortcuts to go in there. Let's see. Oh my goodness. Let me see if I can get into Scopus. And then there should be a button here for me to go to Cyber. See if I can get in Cyber that way. Still not working for me.
Do you have any other browser like Edge or something?
Yes, I do actually. So let me see. Let's see, Firefox will help me. I had a strange message on my computer, which I've never had before. I'm not sure why that would happen. So let me see if I can get in through Firefox.
Do you have Edge? You have it?
Sorry?
Edge. The Microsoft one, like Edge. I'm not sure that you have.
Is it this one? Let me just gosh. Don't seem to be able to get into Cyber. Looks like Cyber closed the connection. I think something went wrong when I updated my computer. Okay, but let me go back to the slides, and then we can, I'll try to figure out something later on. Let me just go
Yes.
back to the slide. Sorry about
Sure,
that.
sure.
Right, so let's look at the QS World University Rankings as well. So first of all, just, generally, so we've been providing the data to QS since 2007. So at one stage, QS and Times Education were actually combined and they split later on. But since 2007, we've already provided. So we provide the raw data as well as cyber institutions as well. So even though we provide the institutional profile, the QS team actually have their own methodology of creating institutions. But Times Education, there's a direct link between the cyber institutions and what is used by Times Education. With QS, it has some effect, but it's not definitive, right? Elsevier also supports in terms of the Scopus data corrections, etc., and then the bibliometric indicators. So for QS, fewer indicators, but they actually tend to be a little bit more complex, I think, more normalizations that take place, but also, taken together about 30% of the entire, QS scoring comes from bibliometric data, or almost 30%, because this 5% of sustainability is not entirely based on, bibliometric data. So the three important bibliometric indicators that come from Scopus data and Cyval data is citations per faculty, which accounts for 20%. Then the International Research Network, which also looks at international collaboration, but it has a little bit of a different perspective. It's more interested in how, not in the number of co-authored publications, but more in terms of the diversity of the collaboration. And then where Times Education have two different rankings to also include societal impact. In QS, it's integrating, it also has a sustainability ranking, but it includes some sustainability indicators within the World University ranking as well, where information from the Sustainable Development Goals, the mapping that we do, is also used in this indicator. Right. So what the data set looks like, it's a paper count or document count over a 5-year period, same as Times Education. So for the 2026 edition, which was already published recently, the data set was 2019 to 2023. So you can see always, 2 years back, and the citation count is taken over a 6-year period. So for that, it also included up to 2024 citations. The affiliation cap, so those are papers, again, those kilo papers or hyper-authored papers. They also have a methodology to deal with that. And what they do is they cap the number of authors by subject area. So they say some subject areas have more proclivity to have more international collaboration or to have more authors in them. So there's a variable cap that they use. So this is in their methodology described. So for arts and humanities, the cap would be like 500, and for engineering, it would be 750 authors per paper, etc. But they also, the variable cap will ensure that no more than 0.1% of research is excluded, right? So it's very liberal, actually, in terms of hyper-authored papers. Then it also has very specific publication types. So articles, reviews, conference papers, books, book reviews, articles in press, business articles, data papers, reports, and also retracted papers are also included. But they exclude self-citations. Self-citations exclusion on the author level. So you get self-citations on author level, affiliation level, journal level, but for QS, they use the author level definitions of self-citations, as opposed to the journal or institutional level. So this is just to avoid that researchers manipulate citations by, oversighting their own work. And then also faculty area normalization is applied then to the subject areas. So each subject area has a different weighting. And then here also the multidisciplinary, there's no subject or faculty area for multidisciplinary. So what we have in Scopus and SciVal, which is mapped to multidisciplinary, they do a remapping of that, also based on the subjects of the documents that cite those multidisciplinary. So complex methodology, but they have figured out ways to also include those publications that are under multidisciplinary. And here, so the main, metric that is used by, or has the biggest weighting, is the citation per faculty. So it's a normalized total citation count that is used. And this indicator then calculates by dividing, so it takes the number of citations per faculty. It's normalized based on total citation. It normalizes the total citation count by the number of faculty reported by the institutions, right? So in SciVal, we have the metric, citations per paper, for example. QS uses citations per faculty. That faculty number comes from the institution. It's not based on the number of authors that we have within SciVal. So a combination of self-reporting and then what we give the ranking organizations. So the faculty area normalization in QS is by, so they do faculty area normalization. And this is done within the QS World University ranking, but also in the other rankings, such as the regional rankings that we don't have within SciVal, but we're also aware of them. So QS equalizes the influence of the research in the 5 key faculty areas, so that each then contributes to 20% of the final indicator. The normalized total citation count, so that calculation is the arithmetic sum of the citation count, the overall citation count for each faculty area, normalized by the faculty area, and then adjusted also to the institution's location, right? So based on, so it will normalize for this, what is the overall output within a country, that is also taken into account, not only across the subject area. Then the weighting factor for citations is applied, and for arts and humanities and social sciences, then an additional correction factor is then added, which adjusts based on the country's research output compared to the most productive and the least productive countries. Right, so it just tries to find a balance for looking at what is the output in arts and humanities and social sciences, because those are somehow outliers, compared to what is the most productive, what is the least productive countries doing there, to find that middle ground. This adjustment also then considers the mean proportion of a country's papers in these areas. So it really makes, the regional factors there also then play a part in the overall, calculation. So if an institution So if an institution within Thailand, for example, will be also measured against what is the total output in social sciences and arts and humanities for the country, that will be taken into account, basically what this means, right? So the citations per faculty, lots of normalizations. All of these normalizations are transparent, so we show the actual, values within SciVault for our users to understand, what is happening with the data to go that leads up to the end result. Then get stuck here. And then, so this is the second metric that is used. So this is the international collaboration. It's calculated on how many countries or territories are involved in the collaborations compared to the natural logarithm of how many international partners there are. So unlike Times Higher Education, that's just interested in how many publications are co-authored internationally, this is more interested in, as I mentioned, at looking at the diversity. Because if you are a country that is only collaborating with your neighbor countries, for example, that is not what QS wants to see. They want to see diversity in the collaboration. And so they calculate this by dividing the number of partners by the number of locations. So they identify, as you can see here in this little graph here, they identify the number of publications that have international co-authorship, but then they also identify how many locations and how many partners there are, and they do that calculation based on that. So diversity is important here. And then sustainability is then also the third metric for QS, and what they this is quite a complex methodology that is used, but the institution's score in this sustainability indicator is drawn from the standalone QS sustainability ranking. So this is a ranking this is a metric, I would say, that is in development. So QS came up with a sustainability ranking, and they pulled some of the data from that to reflect in the World University Ranking. And then what this looks like is that the sustainability ranking has three categories. It looks at environmental impact, social impact, and governance. And for each of those three lenses, what they call them, they identify different metrics within those lenses, and some of them have like 12 metrics, some 5, and so on. But some of those metrics then also include research impact. So for EQ1, for example, this is one of the categories. You would have, so this is the environmental impact, for example. One of the metrics they would look at contributions to SDG 5 and SDG 10. Sorry, that is so these are actually underlying some of the main the main categories. Then you have another metric that looks at education, and they would also integrate then publications related to SDG 4, and so on and so on. So up to 23% of this sustainability score comes from bibliometric data, and the rest comes from non-bibliometric data. So that could be projects within the institution, sustainability projects, training or learning curriculums and so on. But the documents in Scopus and SciVault that are mapped to the Sustainable Development Goals then are taken into account for the sustainability indicator within QS. So this is also then a screenshot from SciVault to show how this information is presented within SciVault, and then more specifically how you can benchmark this information. So you can select the QS World University Rankings, and then you can select institutions that you want to benchmark. All the metrics are available, the different, the score, the rank, the score, the metric, the actual metric, etc. So all of the indicators are available then for benchmarking. And these are also very useful if you just want to create a report on the actual, ranking results. All of this information can be exported and it can be added to a report, which you can just, share internally within the institution. So I'm so scared to go back to my browser. Let me just see if some magic has happened in the meantime and I can get.
Yeah, you can try. Yeah.
Let me try. Just give me one moment to see. I'm just going to close. Still not able to. Right, so it seems like I've been blocked from Cyber for some reason. So we'll have to make another plan when we get to the demo part of this. So let me just get back to my slides. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah.
Share again. Sorry, I just have to scroll down to find. So we were talking about next the impact rankings. Right, so the impact rankings are really interesting because it's a completely different concept that was used, that was, introduced in terms of ranking institutions. And it's really the first attempt to evaluate university performance based on their success towards the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And the aim of creating this ranking was to act as a catalyst for action, and to also to present an opportunity for universities to highlight the work that they're doing. So it's a big challenge for institutions to show what is their contribution towards real life problems, and the Sustainable Development Goals really give us that opportunity, that link, and that framework to show what we are doing towards real world challenges. So the rankings are also less restrictive in the sense that it's open to any university, where the other rankings are very specific, eligibility criteria. Just, any institution that has undergraduate and postgraduate level education can enter this ranking. There's no minimum research requirement, for example. And it requires then but if an institution then wants to participate in this ranking, they need to submit data to at least 4 SDGs, of which one of them is SDG 17, which is the partnership for the goals. So that's the minimum. And then also universities are ranked then for each SDGs they submit, even if they do not submit at least 4 SDGs. So to be in the global ranking, you need to have 4. But even if you don't have 4, they will still evaluate and give feedback on those that you have submitted data for. And then the research is amongst 4 overall main indicators. So the impact ranking looks at research, and research is also here the most weighted. It has the highest weighting. It has a weighting of 27% of the overall ranking. And then it also looks at stewardship, So what projects, sustainability projects are available within the institution? How does it manage sustainability within the institution? In teaching, what is the curriculum? How's the curriculum adapted to sustainable development goals? And then also community outreach. So what programs are there for the community? In terms of the research component, then the bibliometrics are based on publication count and citation data. This is from Scopus because this is the underlying raw data set, but also then from SciVal in terms of some of the metrics. So in all cases, when we provide data to the rankings, it comes from Scopus as the raw data, and then in SciVal where you have more metrics that have been calculated, that have been pre-calculated. So when looking to compare universities across the SDGs, also note that each SDG, even if when you're looking at the research also, each SDG answers a different question, so it uses different metrics. So in Times Education and in QS, they look at citations, basically. Publications and citations and different, calculations of those. But within the SDGs, each SDG has a different set of metrics. So it could be, for instance, the number of publications that can be linked to that SDG, the quality of the journals in which it was published, for example, or the number of publications in the top 10% most cited. So each SDG has a different set of metrics that are used. All right, so for each SDGs, this is exactly what I said now. Specific query has been created. It narrows the scope to the metric relevant to that SDG. So first of all, the mapping determines whether a publication is linked to a specific SDG. It uses a 5-year window also, and the metrics chosen have different are different for each SDGs, and also always for each SDG more than 2 or at least 2 bibliometric measures, but not only 1. So just something about that mapping. So how do we do the mapping? And this mapping methodology was actually developed based on the need of Times Higher Education to have such a mapping. So within Elsevier from 2015, we've already looked at, how can we map publications? But as we started talking to Times Higher Education, we developed, this mapping based on keywords. So very comprehensive keyword strings using Boolean operators, etc. It's a very complicated methodology that is used, which we can go into maybe with another session, but these keywords, these keyword combinations, which are based on the narrative of each of the SDGs, they are used then to identify or to tag documents within Scopus that are considered aligned with the SDGs. So the methodology behind that, we don't have time today to go into that, but it is freely available in Digital Commons data. So when we share this, presentation with you, these are hyperlinked, so you can go and look at the actual, and I think we have a session on SDGs later on as well, which I'll go more into that. This is what I mentioned, that for each SDG, there's a different combination of metrics that are used. So here you can see, for example, SDG 2, which is about zero hunger, has 3 metrics. It uses the publications top journal percentiles, which accounts for 10%, the field-weighted citation impact of those publications that are mapped to SDG 2, and then that's 10%, and then the scholarly output, so the actual just number of publications, that accounts for 7%. And so for each of these SDGs, a different combination of metrics are used. And then in the interface in SciVal itself, you will see that it gives information. So only 4 indicators are used for so if an institution provides data to the ranking organization about all the SDGs, only 4 of them will be used in the in the end result, in the overall ranking. So you can imagine they have to limit that because one institution will submit 4 SDGs, another institution will submit 7 SDGs. So there's a baseline. So the 4 SDGs that the university performs the best in are then used in the global ranking calculation. So in SciVal, you will also see the ranking here. You will see the overall rank of the institution within a specific the overall ranking, and then per SDG, what was the performance of the institution in that specific SDG. First, then focusing on those that were included in the the ultimate ranking, but then also any other SDG that the institution provided data for will also be listed. For each of these data sets related to an SDG, you can dive deeper into the publication set as shown here, if you can see my mouse. So you can analyze the publications as in the other rankings as well. And then a detailed overview will be given for each of the SDGs and the individual metrics and how they performed in those metrics. So this is also just another. So the SDGs have also, or the impact ranking has also now been added to the compare mode. So you can also compare your performance per SDG with other institutions. So can we do that poll, the next poll when we stop? Shall I stop? Do I need to stop sharing?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
ตอนนี้ก็มีคำถามนะครับก็เป็นคำถามนะครับของหน้าสไลด์29นะครับอาจจะถามว่าเอ่ออยากนะครับอยากรู้ว่าเราคิดยังไงเกี่ยวกับค่าชีวัดนะครับก็จะมีคำตอบก็คือคำถามแรกนะครับคำตอบแรกนะครับก็จะเป็นคำถามที่บอกว่านะครับแมทริกไหนนะครับที่เอ่อคนเข้าใจผิดมากที่สุดนะครับแล้วก็อันที่สองนะครับอยากรู้เกี่ยวกับว่า citation เนี่ยนะครับมันดีต่อการวัดไหมนะครับมันดีต่อการวัดในเชิงคุณภาพหรือว่า impact ไหมนะครับแล้วก็อย่างที่สามนะครับมีเอ่อในส่วนของค่าชีวัดน่ะมีอย่างอะไรที่จะแอดอยากให้แอดไหมนะครับแล้วก็อันที่สี่นะครับอยากรู้เกี่ยวกับว่าเหมือนอยากรู้เกี่ยวกับว่าทำยังไงจะให้พัฒนาในส่วนของ ranking นั่นเองนะครับเกี่ยวกับการวิเคราะห์ผล
So maybe I think these request answers. So maybe in the chat, or can they type in an answer?
Yeah, sure. In the chat, yeah, I think it's not much thing. It's about like normal thing. I mean, like it's about the technical things from Zoom. Yeah, nothing much. I have answer for something. So
Oh, I see.
yeah. Okay, I will end the poll and let me see the result here.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So majority of the answer will be like the first and second, which metric is the most misunderstood? And second, do you think the citation a good measure to measure quality and impact? Yeah. And also the last one is about like what support do you wish more of in analyzing ranking? So yeah.
So you can give us feedback in the chat about these so that we can understand how we can support you better in all of these. Okay, so I'm still not able to share my browser, but we've still got, let me just go on to
Okay, sure.
the final section, and maybe when it will be necessary then for you to share your screen and I can talk you through,
Yeah, sure, can.
okay. Okay, so let me,
Wait, find my sidebar first.
I think
Okay.
I can just finish my
Okay,
presentation and
sure.
then we
After
go
that.
into, yeah, into that.
Okay, sure can.
Okay. Right, so one of the developments that we have within the Cyber bibliometrics for rankings is that we've added a tracker. And the reason why we added this tracker is because the data is usually extracted at a certain time of the year. So it is extracted in May, usually provided to the ranking organizations. But then before the next ranking is published, institutions is very eager to understand, so where do we look, how do we look like in the next ranking, right? So are we in trouble, or are we looking good? So this feature is very much, focused on that. Sorry, to go back here. So it's to understand that interim period, that interim period. Somehow my screen moves. I think I've got a very big bug on my side today, but I can maybe just talk through this. So this this is what the ranking tracker looks like. So it's basically, providing information, predictive information, in the sense that we take another data snapshot and show what is the what is the interim position of institutions? What does it look like then for the next ranking before it is published, so that there's not surprises, and also for institutions that still want to make a strategic sort of project about increasing their performance, right? So that's just an interim views which you can look at. So each within the rankings tracker, this is only available still for Times Education World University rankings. It will also be expanded to the other rankings, but for now it's covering each of the indicators, each of the bibliometrics that are used, and it is showing then what is the current or the previous ranking position, and then what is the ranking tracker forecast then for the next ranking. So here you can see this is very small, but you can see for this institution here, so the number of publications increased from the previous output to the interim snapshot that we've taken. So the absolute value there is 224. And this is then also now available within the compare mode within Cyber. So you can also look at the predictions or the ranking tracker results within the compare mode and compare it then with other institutions. So the important things to note about the tracker is that it calculates according to the methodology. So this is determined by the ranking agency, right? So the methodology doesn't belong to Elsevier. The indicators and the scores of a research metrics are normalized z-scores. And the data set then used for the normalization are based on the population of most recent published ranking editions. Also, some indicators are not available as the calculations involve more variables that's not included in the Elsevier dataset. But most of the indicators are actually covered. And this data shot is then usually taken from February. So after the ranking data is provided in May to the ranking organizations, The rankings are then published in July or in September, and by the next February, the tracker information then comes available so that institutions can see what is their progress. But then also keep in mind that this, the February or the tracker information is not final. So it's still going to increase up to the next data snapshot that will be taken. Right. So that's about the ranking tracker then. And what you will see then in Cyber is that in a table format, you can compare the ranking tracker information, but you can also visualize that nicely where the circles that have perforated, boundary edge basically shows what is the tracker indication of the metric, which is the full one. So an important factor, most of you have indicated in the beginning also that how can you affect the rankings? And there are a few ways, a few things that are important in terms for institutions to keep in mind in terms of how they can influence and we don't want to say influence the rankings, but what are important housekeeping and things to keep in mind when we think about rankings and we strategize about the institution's performance in rankings. And the first thing is about the affiliation profile in Scopus. So if you go to your institutional profile within Scopus, you will note that there is a structure. So the structure will show you for the institution. So some institutions are very simple in the sense that it has, one structure. Other institutions have multiple structures. So it could be, it's not departments, it's research centers, it's research institutes, it's hospitals. And to make sure that these organizations that belong to the university are actually linked in the organizational profile. So this is usually correct, but just make sure, especially if there's a new center or institute that has been launched within an institution, make sure that those publications from those institutes are also being counted towards the university. And we offer a service which is called Affiliation Profile or Institutional Profile Wizard, IPW, where administrators can be authorized in the institution to make corrections to the institutional profile. So this is the first thing, make sure the institutional profile is correct. So these profiles are the raw data is curated within Scopus, but then it is also used to create the SciVol profile of the institution. So also look at the SciVol, SciVol profile of the institution, specifically for Times Education, which uses the SciVol organizational profile. So here I'm showing both. This is University of Baghdad within Scopus and the University of Baghdad in SciVol, and you can link through to more information about this institution where you will then see. Hopefully we can do it in the interface. The next thing that's very important is to train researchers at the institution to affiliate or to attribute their publications correctly. So, often the researchers are not so focused on this, and often they would not provide the full information, or they would use an acronym, providing as much information as possible. And this process happens when the authors submit the manuscript to the publisher. Then the affiliation information is provided. So in Scopus, we cannot correct that information. Once an author has used a specific affiliation or specific information about the institution, that is then the authoritative information. So they have to be trained or informed upfront to use correct and full information, right? So here's provide the department information, the university information, and the correct address, or at least the zip code information. So do that as accurately as possible, and not only write, Department of Physics and Bangkok, for example. So we need the department information, we need the institution information. So that's important. So using, if possible, the ORCID number as well. So those two, affiliation information, the author information, the attribution must be accurate, but then looking from an organizational perspective and thinking about, how can we improve the research of the institution so that we can perform better in the rankings, considering that research is in all the rankings very significant. And here are some, tips that are provided not by us specifically, but by researchers that have published about this, that have done research about this, and looking at, so what kind of research attracts more citations, for example, because citations are basically the key or the main metric that can influence the bibliometrics component of the rankings. And here, so the quality of the research. So one of the things is innovative and original work. So research that presents novel findings and theories or methods tends to attract more citations, right? So also research that is relevant and timely. So research are tackling contemporary or high impact problems are often more cited. So if we, just thinking about, things like COVID, that was very contemporary. It's still contemporary. So any of these, artificial intelligence is currently very important, climate change, all these very contemporary issues, research within them tend to have higher impact. They have more, in terms of they are more cited. And then international collaborations. So research involving international partnerships tend to receive higher citations due to wider exposure. So we see that institutions actually take a lot of trouble to understand their current collaborations, not only because international collaboration is a metric within both QS and Times Education, but international collaboration generally increases citations. And there's many reasons for that, because contemporary problems, multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary problems, and a large issues, large sustainability issues. These require large groups of researchers, large research teams to address them. So there are many reasons why international collaborations or internationally collaborated research get more cited. So this is a very important strategic, issue to take note of, and to make sure that researchers are identifying the correct or most efficient international partners to work with. And then, of course, publication in high impact journals. So high impact journals tend to have very good editorials. They have very wide exposure, visibility, and they tend to, publish sort of cutting edge research. They're more read, more likely to be noticed, and they're definitely more cited. So making researchers aware of high impact journals and the importance of high impact journals is also important, and to keep to keep an eye on the profile of journals in which researchers are publishing and making sure that they are well educated in the best possible journals in which they can publish to increase their visibility, to increase their citations, importantly, right? Then also collaboration with industry. So research with practical applications that engage industry and government stakeholders can attract citations from both academic and non-academic sources. So this is also another way we see that if you use SciVol, the collaboration module, you will notice that in 99% of the cases, those publications that have corporate partners or industry partners or industry co-authors that are more cited. And this is just because they have practical implications. They are applied science. So these also attract more citations and can elevate the performance of the university within rankings. And then interdisciplinary science. So there's evidence. So you will see one of the sources at the bottom here did research on that specifically. So there is evidence that suggests that there's a correlation between interdisciplinary science and higher citation rates. Because this is, although the relationship is complex and it varies from discipline to discipline, in general, they have found evidence that interdisciplinary and also, collaboration with industry, those, elevate citations along with the other factors that I've mentioned. So this is mentioning this specifically because when we look at the data within SciVol, we can see the numbers, but what do we do about these numbers? So it's important to keep in mind that you use SciVol, you use the actual count, the actual bibliometric measures that are provided within SciVol to identify where there are weaknesses. And those weaknesses can then be addressed through these 6 factors that are mentioned. So these are universal. These are the only factors about research that we can actually influence in terms of, where we publish, who we collaborate with, etc. So use SciVol to identify the weaknesses, and then use these strategies then to improve the performance. So having said all of that, I think it's also important that we, as a publisher, but also as a data provider, we don't encourage institutions to basically manipulate the rankings. We just want institutions to understand what are the factors that influence researchers, but in essence, we believe that being successful in rankings should be the consequence of an excellent strategy, not the driver for it. So, your performance in the ranking is not the end goal. It should not be the end goal. Okay. So I think we can leave that question until the end. But if we can see maybe one between the two of us, if we can go into SciVol.
Yep, for sure. You can try first. I mean, like, if you cannot, so then I will
Okay.
do it.
Let me just see again if I can. No, I'm afraid. Okay, let me just try another browser. So not. If you'll allow me to just disconnect for a minute and maybe connect again, I can, if we have a few minutes to do that.
Yeah, sure,
Would
sure,
that
sure
be
can.
okay? I think I want to try something by doing that. Sorry.
Okay, sure. ครับเดี๋ยวคุณรูเชียจะ reconnect นะครับเบื้องต้นอันนี้มินก็จะพาเข้ามาดูในส่วนของตัว ranking ก่อนนะครับก็อย่างที่คุณรูเชียบอกว่าจริงๆแล้วมันมีหลายแฟกเตอร์นะครับที่อยากจะเอ่อเข้าใจนะครับที่เราสามารถเข้าใจได้แล้วก็เข้าไปดูในส่วนของไซวาอันนี้เป็นหน้าของ NUS นะครับ National University of Singapore นะครับมันก็จะมี ranking ต่างๆให้เราสามารถที่จะ track หรือเข้าไปดูได้ก็จริงๆตัว ranking เนี่ยมันเป็น เราอยากให้เป็นหนึ่งอาจจะเป็นบางมหาลัยก็เป็นหนึ่งในยุทธศาสตร์ถูกไหมครับแต่ว่าไม่ไม่ได้อยากให้ไปโฟกัสว่าฉันจะต้อง drive อย่างเดียวเพราะฉะนั้นมันอาจจะไปสอดคล้องกับยุทธศาสตร์เช่นต้องการพัฒนาทางด้านใดด้านหนึ่งด้วยเช่นเดียวกันเพราะว่าถ้าสมมติว่าเราโฟกัสไปทางด้าน drive ranking 100%แล้วทีนี้เนี่ยมันอาจจะไปมี impact นะครับกับทางตัวนักวิจัยนะครับเพราะแน่นอนว่าบางมหาบางมหาวิทยาลัยนะครับบางนักวิจัยเขาก็มีเขาเรียกว่ามีมีจุดยืนในเชิงการพัฒนางานทางด้านวิทยาศาสตร์นะครับซึ่งการพัฒนาด้านนี้เนี่ยซึ่งมันอาจจะสอดคล้องที่จะสามารถ drive ranking ได้แต่เราเบื้องต้นเราไม่ได้อยากให้บอกว่าเอ้ยเราต้องโอ้โหเราต้อง drive เราต้องขับเคลื่อนทุกอย่าง100%เพราะว่ามันอาจจะทำให้ในส่วนของงานวิทยาศาสตร์คือคนอาจจะลืมว่าเราอยากจะ drive ranking อย่างเดียวจนลืมไปว่างานในส่วนของงานทางด้านวิทยาศาสตร์เนี่ยก็สำคัญเพราะฉะนั้นเนี่ยมันสามารถทำไปด้วยกันได้เพราะว่าบางมหาวิทยาลัยเขาอยากจะ drive 100%จนลืมไปว่า ทรัพยากรของมหาลัยนั้นๆเนี่ยไม่ได้มีทรัพยากรเท่ากันนะครับแล้วก็นักวิจัยนะครับเขาก็จะถูกเขาเรียกว่าถูกกดดันนะครับจนทำให้งานวิจัยเนี่ยมันไม่ได้ไปสอดคล้องกับยุทธศาสตร์ของแต่ละมหาวิทยาลัยนะครับที่ต้องการที่จะพัฒนาในเชิงของงานวิจัยทางด้านหลากหลายอย่างอย่างเช่นภูมิปัญญาไทยหรือว่าอะไรก็แล้วแต่ที่ซัพพอร์ตประเทศไทย นั่นเองนะครับ เพราะฉะนั้นก็เอ่อแต่ละมหาลัยก็จะมีจุดยืนที่แตกต่างกันนะครับทีนี้เรามาดูก่อนนะครับว่าเมื่อกี้คุณลูเชียได้พูดถึงในส่วนของเอ่อ ranking นะครับแล้วมันก็จะมี ranking ตรงนี้ฮะทางด้านซ้ายมือนะครับอันนี้เป็นตัวอย่างทางด้านของ NUS นะครับก็จะมีที่เป็น QS นะครับ THE นะครับแล้วก็เป็น Academic Ranking World นะครับแล้วก็เป็นอันนี้เป็นของ ranking ของ ทางประเทศจีนที่เขาได้ทำขึ้นมานั่นเองซึ่งเราสามารถที่จะ track ดูแต่ละอันได้นะครับอันนี้เบื้องต้นเป็นของ QS ถ้าเราต้องการที่จะ analyze more นะครับก็เราก็สามารถคลิกเข้าไปได้ตรงนี้นะครับมันก็จะมีบอกนะครับในปีของ 2025มันก็จะเอาของปีก่อนหน้านั้นนำคำนวณนะครับในส่วนของ citation per faculty นะครับR RN นะครับ International Research Network Score นะครับแล้วก็ sustainability นะครับซึ่งแต่ละ criteria นะครับที่เราสามารถเข้าไปดูได้ ทีนี้มันก็จะมีการ break down นะครับอย่างแรกนะครับเป็น citation per faculty ตรงนี้นะครับอย่างที่เราได้เห็นก็จะมีในส่วนของQS นะครับของ scholarly output นะครับ citation นะครับแล้วก็ normalized total citation QS ตรงนี้ซึ่งมันก็จะถูก categorize ถูกแยกไปในแต่ละ subject area นะครับเป็น art and humanity นะครับบอกเลย engineering technology แต่ทีนี้บางท่านต้องการรู้ว่าเอ้ย แล้วเราอยากจะ drive ในส่วนของค่าพวกนี้เนี่ยยังไงนะครับเพราะฉะนั้นเราอาจจะต้องมาดูว่าแต่ละแต่ละ publication ที่เกิดขึ้นในแต่ละสาขาตรงเนี้ยนะครับมันเป็นอย่างไรเราก็สามารถที่จะวิเคราะห์ข้อมูลไปอีกเราโดยทำการนะครับคลิกเข้าไปนะครับวิเคราะห์โดยการเซฟเป็น publication set ตรงนี้นะครับมันก็จะเอาเฉพาะข้อมูลตรงเนี้ยฮะ ไปวิเคราะห์เราก็สามารถที่จะวิเคราะห์ในส่วนของข้อมูลแต่ละข้อมูลได้นะครับว่าเราอยากรู้ว่าเอ้ยทำไมตรงนี้คะแนนมันไม่ได้เยอะทำไมตรงนี้คะแนนมันถึงน้อยนะครับเราก็สามารถวิเคราะห์ในเชิงแบบนี้ได้ซึ่งอันนี้ก็จะเป็นเอ่อ citation per faculty นะครับด้านล่างจะเป็น RN ก็จะเป็นในส่วนของการทำinternational research network คือยิ่งถ้าเรามีจากข้อมูลเมื่อกี้นะครับยิ่งถ้าเรามีในส่วนของ collaboration นะครับ กับทางด้านมหาลัยที่อื่นมันก็จะถูกนำมาคิดนะครับแต่ต้องมีอย่างน้อยหนึ่งเขาเรียกว่าหนึ่งประเทศ นะครับจะไม่นับประเทศเราเองถูกไหมฮะอาจจะต้องมีทำกับประเทศอื่นเพื่อมาเพิ่มคะแนนในส่วนของ RA ตรงนี้ซึ่ง RA เขาก็จะมีสูตรเมื่อกี้นะครับผมจำสูตรไม่ได้เป็นสูตรล็อกนะครับล็อก L ส่วน P หรือเปล่าผมไม่แน่ใจ นะครับแล้วเขาก็จะมาคำนวณตรงนี้นี้เราก็สามารถเข้าไปดูได้ว่าเปเปอร์ไหนที่เรามี collaboration จับกับตรงนี้นะครับในแต่ละสาขาซึ่งสมมุติว่าเราต้องรู้ว่าเอ้ยทางด้าน engineering and technology เนี่ยเรามีเยอะแล้วแต่ทีนี้เราต้องการที่จะ drive ในส่วนของ art and humanity เราก็อาจจะเข้าไปดูนะครับว่าเอ้ยมีอาจารย์ท่านไหนบ้างที่ทำ collaboration กับที่อื่นหรือเราต้องการ drive ในส่วนของ art and humanity ตรงนี้อันนี้ก็เป็นตัว tracking กันนะครับ แล้วก็มีในส่วนของsustainability ที่เกี่ยวกับ list ของ SDG นะครับเดี๋ยว SDG เนี่ยเราก็จะมาพูดเพิ่มกันในครั้งหน้านะครับแต่เบื้องต้นผมได้ใส่ข้อมูลลงในช่อง chat box นะครับว่าเรามี SDG เนี่ยมันจะถูก track จากไตเติลหรือชื่อเรื่องนะครับหรือว่าเป็นบทคัดย่อเนี่ยแล้วมันจะถูกแยกไปแต่ละ SDG เนี่ยได้อย่างไรเราอาจจะใช้คำพวกนั้นนะครับ อาจจะใช้คำพวกนั้นนะครับใส่เข้าไปในไตเติลนะครับหรือชื่อเรื่องบทความเพื่อให้มันเกิดตัวส่วนของ Publication ตรงนี้เนี่ยเกิดใน SCG แล้วนำมาเป็นหนึ่งในคะแนนนะครับที่อยู่ในส่วนของ Sustainability นั่นเองครับอ๋อขออภัยครับ อีกทั้งครับเป็นในส่วนของ THE World Ranking นะครับก็คล้ายๆกันในนี้ก็จะมี tracker นะครับในส่วนของตัว Research Productivity แต่นี้จะเป็นคะแนนที่เขาเรียกว่าสรุปออกมาแล้วในปี 2025นะครับผมว่าเราเนี่ยมีคะแนนเท่าไหร่แล้วก็ประกาศออกมาเป็นในส่วนของ ranking นะครับแต่ถ้าเราอยากนะครับอันนี้ก็จะมีแต่ละแยกเป็นแต่ละอันเหมือนกันนะครับว่าเป็น Research Productivity นะครับ International Co-authorship นะครับแล้วก็เป็นในส่วนของ citation impact นะครับที่คุณลูเชียได้โชว์ไว้เมื่อกี้ว่าเอ่อการที่เราจะ drive นะครับตัวบทความพวกนี้เนี่ยมันก็จะมีในการคิดคำนวณในส่วนของบทความที่อยู่ในระดับอย่างเช่น Q1 นะครับหรือ Tier 1นะครับ Top 10%เป็นต้นนะครับในส่วนของ Research Excellence เนี่ยเห็นไหมครับว่าอย่างเช่น Research Excellence เนี่ย Number of publication in top 10 citation percentile นะครับมันก็จะถูกนำมาคิดนะครับเบื้องต้นนั่นเองแต่ทีนี้มันมีอีกตัวนึงเขาเรียกว่า tracker นะครับranking tracker เนี่ยมันก็มีความสามารถในการ track ว่าเนี่ยนะฮะในปัจจุบันเนี่ยเอ่อ เราเราเขาเรียกว่าเรากำลังมีคะแนนอยู่เท่าไหร่เพราะว่าอย่างปี2025มันคิดจาก2019จนถึงปี2023แต่ปี2026เนี่ยมันคิดจากปี2020จนถึงปี2024เพราะฉะนั้นตรงนี้เราก็สามารถ track เพื่อดูว่าเราพัฒนาจากปีที่แล้วนะครับจากการคำนวณของปีที่แล้วกับของปีนี้เนี่ยเป็นอย่างไรอย่างเช่นเคส NUS เนี่ยปัจจุบันเนี่ยเขาเห็นไหมครับว่าตัวจำนวนของ publication เขาสูงกว่าปีที่ผ่านมาซึ่งเขาอาจจะไปช่วยกระตุ้นในการ drive ในส่วนของ ranking โอเคครับคุณลูเชียกลับมา Hi Lucia
Yes, I
yes
am finally, I'm finally
we,
back.
we can share right
Yes, I can share.
okay yeah great yeah I just
Great.
like I just um discuss about like how can we navigate the rankings in terms of like each kind of criteria and ranking tracker but yeah you can discuss this for your part as well yeah
Okay. Right. Is there, where should I, where do you think I should start?
yep
You,
okay okay
okay.
I can see your yeah
Can see my screen. Okay.
yes
So we don't have a lot of time left, so I'm just going to walk, quickly through this. So we start with the explore. Information is available in the explore mode as in the compare mode. So you don't have to select a date range when you're working with the ranking organization. So first of all, so maybe you will have noticed that we have a different way of selecting entities now. So when you want to select an entity, select the entity panel, it will open. Select the type of entity that you want to select. So I have already a number, but if you don't have your entities, you can type the name of the entity in this box on the left-hand side, right? That's just something that's new within Cyval recently. So within an institution, so it's only universities that are ranked and only universities that have participated in a ranking that will be available. And only those rankings that the institution has participated in. So not all institutions, of course, participate in all the rankings or in QS and Times Education and the impact ranking. So if you scroll down using your entities panel, you can find the information that is shown. So you can select between the different impact rankings. But before we get there, please just note, so this is important. So if you want to see more details about the institution, you click on the, at the top, and you will see then what the institution what is the structure of the institution and what is being used by the ranking organizations. So let me just see, where is the compare the definitions here. So here you can, if you go to compare definitions, you will see each of the ranking organizations have specific definitions of which affiliations they include in the ranking. So here you can see for Times Higher Education and what is in SciBol. You can also then see which of these affiliations are then included in the rankings, right? So in this case, let me just highlight the right. So all of these institutions, but this institution, the Faculty of Medicine, is not shown to be included, right? Why would that be? Right. So I'll have to come back to see what is happening within this. Why is this not covered? It's not highlighted as being included, right? So there might be a reason for that. But this is what I wanted to show you. So on the profile page of the institution, go to more details, look at that definitions of which affiliation. So each profile of an institution are built up of different affiliations. And some of them are included in the rankings and some of them are not. Then scroll down to your rankings and then you can navigate through them. So this is the QS. The 2026 ranking was announced very recently, so this will be updated. It's not yet in SciBol. So we want to, there's usually a 2-week or so delay before we can, add the information into SciBol. So this is still the previous year data that is available, right? So here you can then, the important thing here is that you can see, the top level information. So this is the summary view. This is the position of the university in the ranking. This is the number of publications that are included for the rankings. And here you can then analyze those publications, right? So if you want to do a further analysis specifically on the subject areas that are covered, the key phrases, the topics that are involved, you can create a publication set and do very deep analysis on the publications that are actually used within the rankings. And the reason why you would do that is to identify on a deeper level what subject area, what journals are the researchers publishing? Are they publishing in the highest ranking journals? Who are they collaborating with? Who can they still be collaborating with? What are the key topics that they are working on? Can we expand collaboration within those topics? So using this data and then taking it broader to see how can we improve the performance within the ranking. So then just a summary of the score of each of the indicators, and then a breakdown here of how the calculations, how the normalizations are taking place. So here you can also, let me just, so here you can see, for example, this is the total number of publications per faculty or a subject area. These are the number of publications that are excluded. So these are not matching the publication types, for example, and then so this is the final number of publications that are used in the rankings. So based on these publications, these are the citation counts for each of them. You can see the excluded, so the number of self-citations that are excluded, and then you have like the total number that is then, so this is the total number after the exclusions are removed. And then you have that weighting for the distribution of the different subject areas equally, so that each of the subject areas count equally or are weighted equally for the ranking, except for additional weighting that is done for arts and humanities, you will see, and also for social sciences. And more information for each of these calculations of the metrics are then available. You can always also click on the eye next to each of the indicators to get a complete explanation of how the metric is calculated, right? So for the IRN, International Research Network, it's very simple. Basically, it uses the partners divided by the locations, and then normalizations that are done on that. And then the sustainability, it shows you the actual list of publications that are used, which you can then also do further analysis on. And this is provided, so this overview in detail is provided for each of the rankings. So yeah, once again, so you can do analysis on that. You can see what is the progress over time period. You can always go back to the actual publications and do analysis on that. If you look at the citation impact, for example, for the Times Higher Education, you can also click on this field-weighted citation impact, and it will give you an overview of the subject, how the subject areas within each of them then perform. So here you can select between different metrics. You can also look at the metric percentiles. Oops. Right, so from this, it gives you an indication, right? So you can see for physical sciences, for example, so the percentiles look a little bit lower, for instance, for physical sciences, for example, and this would then guide you towards where, what to focus on in terms of what can be, to see if I can, I'll just give some more information on that. And then just go back. I won't take up a lot more time. Sorry, we lost so much time with the difficulties that we have today. But you can see, so, identifying first, where is it that we can improve? What does the metric tell us about where we have possible, weaknesses, for lack of a better word now, and then using the publication set underneath to really see where are the researchers publishing, for example, looking at the sources. Are these the top sources? Can they select better journals? Can they expand their collaboration towards other, institutions? You can create a publication set from this, and where you will then also see what are the topics that they're working on, and then identify from those topics other key researchers or contributors to that research topic, and through that kind of analysis then help or guide researchers to improve the visibility of their work, which will then attract more citations. So this is also then just showing where is so you can see from, it's very closely linked there, but the field-weighted citation impact showing there at 108, and then at the this is at the 75th percentile. So not so many outliers that are excluded here, but it's important to also take note of those outliers. This is a very strong increase in the number of, publications towards the 10% most cited. So looking at going through each of the metrics that are provided, you will see in the impact ranking as well, a full list of the performance of the institution across all the metrics that they participated in the rankings. You can sort them, identify where there is room for improvement, for example, and then create a publication set around that, analyze where the researchers are publishing, who they're collaborating with, what are the topics, etc., to build a strategy for improvement. So this is just an example. This university performs excellently across all the rankings, but just as as an example. And then we've got the tracker, which, where's the tracker now? Right, so the tracker is that interim overview of how the institution is performing, data snapshot from February. If this institution, MyDol, is really, strong performance, increasing on all of the indicators, you can see there's a strong increase there. So there won't be any surprises in the next announcement of there will be increase most probably when the next ranking will be published. But this also then allows you then to be aware of and analyze and also compare across other institutions. So when you get to compare, it's very useful to also, why we have the compare is to contextualize the information, all of these metrics that are available. So you can see all of the rankings are available now in the compare mode. So you select the ranking metrics, then select the actual ranking that you want to analyze. And then there are different ways to analyze. You can look at performance across years. So you can select both years and compare the performance of the institution. Let me just select 1 year. Okay, selected. Then I can select a set of metrics, for example, or by faculty. So I'm selecting all the faculties, for example, and then I have a view of, if I select, this is going to show the performance from 2024 to 2025. But if I want to look at see the actual values, I can select the table mode, then I can change the set of metrics, right? So all the metrics are listed and I can also change them to look at them one by one. I can also select a specific faculty area, for example. And this principle is the same for all of these metrics. I don't want to, spend more time. We've already gone over time, but the principle is the same in terms of select between table and chart view. So the chart is graphic. You can export it. It makes nice in a report, but the table actually gives you the values, and the scholarly output is always clickable. And from here, you can do your comparison by selecting your institution, select institutions by select entities, select all of them, go back, and they will be available in your chart. And then use the publication sets to do your analysis on journals, international collaboration, corporate collaboration, etc. I'm going to stop here, Win, because we're very much over time due to my technical problems. But if there are questions, I'm happy to take those.
I think we don't have like any question as of now. Let me ask them.มีคำถามตรงไหนที่อยากจะถามไหมครับ สามารถสอบถามได้เลยนะครับ เป็นภาษาอังกฤษหรือภาษาไทยก็ได้ครับ Yeah, as of now, I think they might need time to digest our context and information because like yeah there's a lot of question in terms of like ranking and the rest, right? Yeah, I think as of now we don't have any question, and some of question I have like answer already. I think yeah, so no worry about like your issue. I know yeah we all like get some kind of trouble all the time on this as well.
Mm.
And yeah, I think yeah, we don't have any question as of now, but I believe there will be another question. I mean, like after this, yeah, I will reach out to you if I have any additional
Sure.
question regarding on ranking artists. So thank you so much, Lucia, that I quite really appreciate you that you come over to here and conduct about ranking. I think our Thai customer will get some kind of like vision in terms of like how can they navigate ranking, how is calculation, and how can we grow in terms of ranking as well. I think your demo is quite wonderful on this. Thank you so much.
You're
So
welcome.
yeah, I think we coming in. Yeah, thank you so much for joining everyone. So next workshop will be SDG, right? So
Yes.
it will focus more on SDG and how can we calculate in terms of like THE SDG on that, like THE impact, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, hopefully we can get some kind of more information on this as well. Thank you so
Sure.
much, Ruchia.
I look forward to it. You're
Thank you so
welcome.
much
Have a
everyone
good
that
day.
joined. Have a good day. ขอบคุณครั
Thanks,
บ
everyone. Bye-bye. Bye.
Don't forget to send your picture in terms of your purse, your bags that you need me to
Oh, yes.
yeah in Thailand yeah
Oh,
โอเคขอบ
thank
คุณ
you
ครั
so
บ
much.
ขอบคุณครับ
Thanks. Bye-bye.
everyone บ๊ายบาย
Bye-bye.